All right, welcome to episode 2 of what we're calling a Red Rooster Podcast, which is really just us having conversations about coffee. And I'm Haden. I'm the co-owner and co-founder of Red Rooster. And I'm here with Grace, who is our head of education.
Hello, good morning.
If you have seen our YouTube channel at all, then you know Grace better than you know me. Grace is also my sister-in-law. So, when we say that Red Rooster is a family business, we mean it. Behind the scenes a lot, my wife, Rose, actually runs this company and moves all the pieces around, and Grace is her sister. And all of their other sisters also work for Red Rooster. So
we love it here.
Yeah, we really are a family business. So we're excited. You're excited, I can tell. Ready to talk about sensory. So today what we're going to be talking about is how do we taste coffee? What do we taste in coffee? How do we learn to taste coffee? And what is the deal with all of the tasting notes that you see on the coffee bag when you buy it from our website and you're reading that this coffee tastes like lychee or raspberries? Where does that come from? And how do we do that? So Grace, how long have you worked for us at Red Rooster?
I started doing trainings on the side, like on the weekends in like 2012, 2013. But then I officially took a role in 2014 and started.
2014, so that's a long time ago now.
Yep. It's a long time.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like I grew up in coffee for sure. I feel like it's always been in my life and a part of my life.
Well, you were a barista at the original Blackwater Loft coffee shop that started it all.
Yep.
When you were a teenager.
Yep. So that was like 2003, 2004. So I was 13 or 14 years old and just worked for tips, which was amazing for me. I loved that, and drank regular black coffee with a ton of chocolate syrup in it and half and half, and thought I was
living large.
Yeah,
and it sounds delicious. Drinking. Dessert every day, right?
Yeah. But I've been I learned how to roast in 2014 and under Tony, our head roaster, and then stepped more into the role of like education, because I think you and Rose just noticed like Grace wants to get more sciencey and nerdy and learn more about brewing, and how do we foster that? Okay, let's send her to get her SCA training and become an AST, which is an accredited SCA trainer, and open up a campus here. And so that was kind of something I've been working on since 2017, 2018. And so that's what I do now, is I train wholesale clients and host SCA classes. I cup a lot of coffee. I work with our baristas in-house and some of our other employees. A class we offer when we are onboarding is Coffee 101, which is just the history of coffee. It's my favorite class to teach because I love history.
It's really eye-opening for people who have never experienced coffee or never thought about coffee, never thought about where coffee comes from, never thought about the fact that coffee is a fruit.
Most people don't know it's a fruit.
It's a crop.
Yeah, most people have no idea that it is a fruit. And it's not a bean, it's not a legume, it's a seed.
Yeah.
And we're roasting a seed. So that's super common misconception right there.
Bean fruit seed.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of want to start with the idea of like, what was the moment for you where you kind of had an aha moment where you thought, man, coffee is more than I thought it was, or this coffee has, such a unique flavor profile that I'm just totally caught off guard. Is there a time in your life where you...
January 14th, 2015.
Sometime in that.
It's close to that,
okay.
At least. You were there. It was you, me, and Tony. That was our crew for the most part.
Yeah, it was the three of us.
And we were doing a blind cupping. I love blind cuppings. I still like to do them today because I don't know, they catch me off guard a lot too, and I learn a lot more from doing blind cuppings than going in and knowing what it is. I don't think I'm biased with coffee, but then I realize when I'm doing a cupping, I am a little bit.
Blind cupping also provides humility.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you have to accept the coffee for what it is and not have any personal biases or not think that you know what it is before you go into it, which I have that habit quite a bit.
Same. But we were doing a blind cupping. I think there were probably 5 or 6 of our coffees on the table. And there was one that I think you and Tony had probably tried it. I hadn't yet. And I thought maybe it was a gag, like maybe it was a joke, because it didn't even really taste like coffee to me. It tasted like hot tea, like wine. And it was the Ethiopia Worka, which we still sell today and has become a big staple here for us and loved by many.
That was the natural, not the anaerobic, but
Correct.
Just the straight natural
the
Worka.
Ethiopia natural Worka. And I remember going, okay, I can keep getting into this because this was really fun and this was different and this was exciting. Before, I think I was like, yeah, I taste that and yeah, it's good. But this was where I just was like, I could drink this every day. I want to drink it every day, and I want to know how did it get like this because this isn't normal. So I think that was when I started getting excited about coffee outside of like pouring latte art. That was when I started getting excited about the the farming, culinary side, the taste, the sensory aspect.
And we should clarify that a natural process is coffee that's dried in the fruit. For those of you who are new to coffee, dry it in the fruit, often in raised beds, especially in Africa, they dry it on raised beds. Get nice airflow through it, and you rake it daily to make sure that it's consistent. Whereas a washed coffee is going to have the flesh and the skin of the fruit removed mechanically, and it's going to be floated in water, fermented in water in order to remove some of that flesh and skin. And it's typically a cleaner profile, whereas a natural is typically a more fermenty and a little bit sort of funkier, wilder profile. And when we started in coffee in 2010, there were not a lot of like really great naturals. And I think that Worka was maybe the first great natural that we'd ever had. I think there was a moment for me early on, maybe 2011, 2012, when we were roasting Harar, in which a natural Harar and your sister Theta came in, and I ground the coffee, and she just walked into the room and she was like, blueberries.
She's got a good palate.
She has a great palate and a great sense of smell. And I was like, oh my God, you are absolutely right. That smells exactly like blueberries. And we brewed it and it tasted like blueberries. And I later learned, that had been cultivated in that region to taste like blueberries. That coffee cherries had been selected, trees had been selected out, and that Harar profile, that classic blueberry Harar profile, was cultivated by the producers there, because it was very saleable, because people responded to it. So it was no accident that it tasted so predominantly of blueberries.
So when she said that and you agreed, did you go, that's when you went back and you were like, well, okay, this definitely is blueberries, but why? And then you looked into it?
Yeah, cool. Exactly.
Neat.
Yeah. And later on met some folks who were part of cupping teams who were at origin and at washing stations developing the blends of the varietals and pulling from different farms in order to develop the Harar natural profile. So really interesting. So let's just say you talked about cupping. You talked about tasting coffee. So for the layperson, let's just say, what is a cupping? Like, what does it look like? What are we doing?
It's just a formal coffee tasting. We do call it cupping. They're usually done in smaller vessels, 6 to 8 ounces. Typically anywhere from It's normally a 1:18 ratio of coffee to water with any cupping, but depending on how large or small your vessel is, you'll do anywhere from like 8 to 12 grams of coffee. Grind the coffee, pour the hot water over top of it, let it steep. And first you'll evaluate the dry aroma, because I've always considered it kind of like you get to read the first chapter of a book. So it's like, okay, this is going to be good, or this isn't going to be that good, or what is that in there? It's interesting. I got to find out more.
It's
and then
the onions and garlic and olive oil in the pan before you make whatever you're making.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
You were in the kitchen, you're like, yes.
Yeah.
I feel this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And then you get to enjoy the whole meal or read the whole book when you're evaluating wet aroma and tasting. So I think dry aroma is really important. And I sometimes can get more out of dry aroma than wet aroma. Sometimes it's the opposite. But the wet aroma, when you're evaluating wet aroma, that hot water is going to open up more like oils and gases. So you might say, oh, I smelt some sort of fruit in the dry aroma, and then with applying water, it's going to open it up, and you'll say, oh, it's blueberry or whatever else.
Yeah, I think wet aroma is a challenge. It's a challenge for new cuppers, especially.
It just smells hot sometimes.
It smells hot. It smells like coffee.
Mm-hmm.
You get the much more like brewed coffee aroma from it, so that can be predominant to where you think, well, it does smell like coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to dig in a little bit on the wet aroma is always a challenge.
It is challenging, and I think that's the hardest part for anyone who wants to enjoy specialty coffee, but they don't know what the hype is.
Yeah.
But once you develop your palate, you're like, oh, I get what the hype is. Or if you have that one coffee and it's blows your mind.
Yeah, then you're always chasing that. I had a coffee that I feel like we were chasing for a long time, which was that natural process Colombian coffee from Guamera producer that we just hadn't ever tasted a natural coffee like that, and I think we've been looking for something like that ever since, even though in retrospect sometimes I just think that perhaps it was actually too funky, and that it was over processed.
There was something going on with it that wasn't right.
It was like lightning in a bottle, and like for about 2 days it was absolutely perfect, and it was amazing, and it tasted like all kinds of tropical fruit and like a pickled fermented watermelon, and we were just falling all over ourselves.
Yeah,
for
we
that coffee.
competed with it. Yeah. But wasn't it the green coffee? It was the green coffee that was going bad, right?
Well, so yeah, what ended up happening was over the course of time, that green coffee aged
badly.
And it aged badly. And it started to taste like, I thought that it started to taste like Pete's hot sauce.
Yeah, sriracha. I thought it tasted like sriracha.
And so it went from this like glorious tropical fruity experience to, actually we were at an event in a competition, I think, or we had submitted the coffee for a competition, for a roasting competition. And we tasted that coffee while we were there at the event and thought, oh no, like this coffee does not taste like it tasted before. So that, that coffee just lingers in my mind as a sort of like example of how your senses need to be so refined, because I think I was hooked by the romance of the coffee and tricked myself for too long into believing that coffee was still the most amazing coffee that I'd ever tasted, all the way up to the point where it was all the way bad.
And you heard everyone saying, what's wrong with this coffee? And they're like, okay, what's wrong with this coffee?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so just, I always kind of keep that in the back of my mind as like a memory of making sure that I don't get too subjective and I don't get too connected to the romance of some lost in the sauce. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got the wet aroma, you've got the wet cap of grounds sitting on top of your cup, a physical cup, right?
The coffee
in which
crust.
coffee and water are sitting together, and you have a crust of wet coffee on the top of it. So what do you do then?
Okay, so there's a very specific technique with that where you're going to push the coffee grinds or the crust, the slurry, away from you. You get about 3 good tries of this. You can keep doing it if you want to, but you're going to be pushing the grinds away with you with a spoon that's kind of shaped like a soup spoon. And, breathe in, evaluate the wet aroma.
Yeah, that's the best time to do it, right?
Yes, with each push, and also while agitating the grinds on the bottom. So it's just kind of like opening everything up. It's like blooming.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, you can get a whole new array of aromatics with that, or you can start being able to pinpoint what you experienced in the dry aroma too. So aroma, we taste with 80% of what we smell. So making sure that, you evaluate the dry and the wet is very important.
Yeah.
And it's going to lead into, the tasting is the fun part for sure, but those aromatics are really important.
They're the entryway.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then once the coffee's reached a certain temperature, you're going to evaluate the flavor. And that's a lot of fun. We do that here at Red Rooster for, many reasons. We do it for quality control. We have like 2 or 3 different people who roast coffee. So I have to make sure everyone's following the same profile for coffees or a recipe. Yeah. And we also get a lot of samples in. So our head roaster will sample roast a lot of coffees. We will try a lot of them, decide if it's something we want to carry. And we also host public cuppings for the public to come in and experience it as well, do a tasting. But it's a really fun part of the industry.
When you get to tasting it, you take in your soup spoon. It's a little bit deeper than a soup spoon because of the key part of cupping, which is the slurping.
Oh yeah, that is important.
And I mean, everybody has different standards of which they hold themselves to or other people to with this slurping thing. And if you get into a room of like serious coffee professionals,
I don't even notice it anymore.
Then people are like whistling tunes with their cupping slurp, right?
And I've been in rooms with it's like who can do it the loudest.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot of complaining about that and as well.
It can be distracting.
That it's obnoxious that people are just slurping as loud as humanly possible while people are trying to actually taste the coffee.
Yeah, especially if you're at a formal cupping where it's silent, where you're not supposed to talk about what you're experiencing in the cup. It can become distracting. But I don't know. I've kind of started tuning it out as well.
Yeah.
But that just comes with practice.
But anyway, around here, I mean, we have all different levels of experience in cupping, and we have people who are cupping loudly, and we have people who are just slurping a little bit.
And there is a purpose to it. We do it so that the liquid is spraying back behind our teeth and coating our entire palate so that we can pinpoint bitterness and sourness or acidity, sweetness, evaluate the tactile, like the mouthfeel. So we do it for a reason. It's not just
theatrics.
Yeah. It does serve a purpose. Normally when you're learning, you might choke a little bit.
Oh, several times.
It's pretty normal.
I choke now 15 years of experience. I still occasionally get
confident.
A little bit.
You're too confident.
You get a little in the back of your throat and it's all over. So, okay. So you're spraying the coffee all over your mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Behind your teeth.
That's what you're doing.
I mean, that's the effect. That's what you're looking for. And so, you probably have tasted things. Everyone has tasted things where it tastes different from the front of your mouth to the back of your mouth. And we all have the experience of like salty, sweet, bitter, tasting different in different places on your tongue and throughout your mouth and the way it feels in your mouth. Like butter or milk feels different in your mouth than water or beer or wine or whatever other beverages you might be imbibing. You can feel a tactile difference, right? And the same is true with coffee. right? So some coffee has a bigger body, more syrupy body, a thicker, more tactile sensation that you can feel. And then the same goes for the flavor elements, which is to say that some is sweeter, some is more balanced, some is more acidic. And you will taste those things in different places on your mouth. So you want to fill your mouth completely up with it. And the aeration of it, the slurp, actually helps to foster the tasting as well.
And that's why you do it many times, because if you have a table with, I don't know, a lot of coffees, 10 plus, and you're trying to record your notes as you go, it can get a little overwhelming thinking about what's the acidity on this. Is it high? Is it low? Okay, what's the sweetness like? Is it high? Is it low? What is the tactile that I'm experiencing? Okay, what are the flavor notes? And so sometimes you can narrow in on one of those things. That's what I always suggest with new folks cupping. Like, just try it, and is it sweet or is it not sweet? Is it acidic? Is it do you like it? Like,
let's start there.
And why? What are you experiencing in your tongue that's making you like it? And then like narrow in on that. But I have had like cupping blindness before, where I've cupped so much and I'm like, I don't even taste anything anymore. I just have to stop. And sometimes I'll just brew it on my favorite brew device and try it that way. And sometimes that's helpful.
2012 was my first trip to Origin and I went to Nicaragua, and we cupped the first co-op that we went to. We cupped about 25 coffees that were all from individual farms that were all feeding their coffee into the cooperative. And it was 25 different coffees, all Nicaraguan coffees, all roasted to exactly the same medium plus profile. And I felt like such an imposter. I mean, I really, like, I had the most sort of like imposter syndrome at that moment, because I was only 2 years into roasting coffee. I really didn't know what I was doing.
But you knew you needed to be there and
but
do
I knew
what
I
you were
needed
doing.
to figure it out. And in retrospect, put myself in that position today as well, I think it would go exactly the same way, except for that I wouldn't have as much of the imposter syndrome, because that coffee all tasted the same.
Yeah. And I think you could have said that, and a lot of folks probably would be like, yeah.
They'd be like, I mean, we just went around and everybody was like, lemon, chocolate. Oh yeah, lemon, chocolate. A little bit more nuttiness. Oh yeah, lemon, chocolate.
But I mean, I feel like if you're able to go in and do a cupping like that, and you can differentiate what's going on, then you are the sommelier of the coffee world.
It completely changed my cupping experience. When I got back from that trip, I had cupped probably 200 coffees by the end of that.
You came back and you were like, guys, we need to cup more coffee.
Yes, I was like, we need to cup more. And it also just made every single coffee from every single origin taste that much more precise and that much more specific. So yes, so many of the coffees that we tasted, especially in the like fair trade organic cooperatives that we visited, we did visit other farms that had more dramatically different single origin coffees and some different processes where you could really differentiate. But if you're cupping 25 coffees that effectively have the same roast profile, have the same terroir, and are the same cultivars, and you're able to distinguish even that much from each one, by the time you return back to cupping several different origins on the same table, your degree of specificity with your palate has definitely increased. And so even that alone, besides the benefits of actually seeing coffee farms, seeing coffee processes, seeing wet mills and dry mills, and meeting farmers, that's all amazing. But cupping coffee at origin gives you the opportunity to refine your palate in a way that you don't really get here because we end up buying one of those coffees, right? So, or maybe if it's a particularly great origin or something that we're really enthusiastic about, we might buy 4 or 5 Colombian coffees in a year. And so we don't really get to cup a whole table full of Colombian coffees at a time.
Right.
So the benefits of going to origin and cupping at origin are really high. So let's get into the specifics a little bit. Like how are you differentiating between like broader notes like chocolatey and then like pulling out like specificity like cocoa powder or milk chocolate, dark chocolate, or let's say acidity. Now that's a huge challenge for early cuppers, I think. Beginning cuppers. I taste acidity. I can say definitively this coffee has acidity to it. But am I tasting a citric acidity? Am I tasting a malic acidity? What's the difference between those things? So therefore, am I tasting apples, melons? Am I tasting oranges, lemon? Am I tasting even deeper than that, the combination of those flavors, which might be something like berries? How do you approach it?
That's a really good question. And I think the only right answer to that is that you just have to develop your palate, whether that's by cupping coffee every day. Something I always tell anyone new to the industry is like, go on a picnic and pack different kinds of chocolates and pack different kinds of nuts and get different kinds of wines.
Great homework.
Yeah, it is. And I'm like, make it fun. Go with a friend, go with your partner, whatever. But really taste what you're experiencing. You don't have to limit it to coffee and be like, I just need to find the raspberry in this coffee because it's on the bag and that's what everyone's saying it tastes like. Like, that's not going to do it. You have to really know what raspberries taste like and in all of their forms. So it's like fresh raspberry or, even raspberries that aren't ready to pick yet. Cooked raspberries that go in baked goods, freeze-dried raspberries,
which
raspberry
is a really
candy.
different flavor.
Yeah, there's so many. So, and what I experience as like chocolate could be when you say this tastes like chocolate, it could be very different to what you perceive as chocolate initially. So
is this chocolate from Madagascar or is this chocolate from Uganda?
Right. And it depends on kind of like what you grew up on with chocolate or your experiences with chocolate will be very different, and it's different all around the world.
Which is why it's so important to get specific.
It is.
That we could say Hershey's chocolate.
A lot of people know Hershey's chocolate.
Yeah. They know the texture of it.
It's got almost lactic acid in it too, which for folks that can't really differentiate what that is, it's that like sour milk taste that is very specific
a critical
to
part of the
Hershey's chocolate. Yeah. And you're not really going to taste that in a 80-90% single origin chocolate from, somewhere else. You might not. It's going to be totally different. But I think that's what's so fun about developing tasting notes and keeping things interesting for me. It's like we get new coffees in, we get to taste them, and we get to find out what they taste like. And you can be super generic with your notes and say it's citrus and it's chocolate and it's nut. But that's kind of boring, and you can definitely dive deeper into that. So being able to pinpoint them more is really just about developing your palate, and no one can do that for you but you. And that's the truth. Like, there are tools out there, like the World Coffee Research has developed, the SCA flavor wheel. Then there's the Coffee Sensory Lexicon, which is basically like a dictionary for folks, trying to find tasting notes for something. It can help pinpoint them. Just like the flavor wheel can help narrow in on what something might taste like. The Linez is also a tool. There's lots of tools that you can use.
Explain what do you mean by the Linez?
So it's basically an assortment of aromas, oils, that are kind of very specific to what you might experience in coffee So there might be like roasted coffee, unroasted coffee, coffee blossoms, but then it can move into like vanilla, honey.
And defects as well.
Potato
is in there.
Mm-hmm.
Cut grass.
Yeah. And anything like Band-Aids, chemical, something that's burnt, smoky. That's sometimes the defects or what doesn't taste good, I think can throw people off even more so because they're like, I don't like this and I don't know why. And they don't have the vocabulary to explain what it is. And those tools come in handy because then you're able to break it down and be like, oh, it's medicinal.
Yeah.
It's rubbery.
Yeah.
Which also leads into mouthfeel. It's just all very like meshed together.
Should we brew some coffee? We got this coffee over here. I mean, we're having such a good talk, but at the same time, a little caffeine probably would help.
I haven't had any yet.
Okay, so this is the Ala Bombay, amazing classic washed profile, incredibly balanced, floral, sweet.
In the very beginning of our talk, you mentioned how naturals were kind of like new on the scene as well. And I think it was really because people kind of turned their nose up to naturals at first, right?
Well, there were famous companies, coffee roasting companies, that didn't buy naturals when we started. And I mean, people who know coffee will know who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to call them out. But they famously did not buy naturals because they couldn't find the quality that they wanted.
I love a natural Ethiopian. It's definitely my favorite. But I will say I have really been enjoying washed coffees more lately. And I think it's just because my palate's developing more and I can pick things out more.
So you become one of those people?
No, I'll never say I like anything more than the Worka, probably. I shouldn't say never.
Well, you have a very fraught and long relationship with the Worka. That was
way back.
Coffee that you first had your aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was the coffee that you took to competition.
Well, I was like, now everyone else needs to have this moment.
So you took that coffee to competition in Tennessee? Twice?
Yeah, twice. Because it was in the espresso blend for America's Best Espresso.
Oh, that's right, in New York. Yeah.
It was in the blend, and then I used it again. So I'm a big supporter of
Worka Village and that region.
I'm gonna brew this. This is the Venezuela. It's an anaerobic wash, which I don't know a lot about. I mean, I could pick it apart and tell you kind of what that means, but I was hoping you could talk a little bit about an anaerobic wash process.
Yeah, I mean, it's really exactly what it sounds like. And when I asked them that question, and the producers and the importing company, they said the same thing, which is basically that, yes, they're picking the cherry, picking super ripe cherry, and they are storing it in vessels without oxygen immediately off the tree, basically. And they're storing it for a couple of weeks until the pH reaches the level that they're looking for, an acidity, I would guess somewhere in the threes. But I don't really know for sure. And then they're taking that cherry and they're demucilaging it mechanically and running it through a typical wash process. So they basically just have, instead of floating it and fermenting it immediately in water for, sometimes 12 to 18 to 24 hours, they're storing it anaerobically, meaning without oxygen. So typically in smaller lots and producers that don't have some resources, they'll even do it in plastic bags, in Grain Pro bags, where they basically just keep on pushing out the oxygen. We sort of think about it more classically or sort of professionally as using like stainless steel wine fermenters that have bladders in them that push all the air out and store the cherry in that, and it'll start to break down a little bit, and the juice will start to flow in the fermentation process. And so there's so fermented coffee juice that comes out of the bottom that they test the bricks and test the pH to see when they're done fermenting it anaerobically. And then in the case of this coffee from Venezuela, which, is super rare to have a coffee from Venezuela. I will say this is the first one we've ever had. We were so excited about it. They're washing it in the normal washing process after that anaerobic fermentation.
So what I know about anaerobics is that they're pretty fruity, and
they can be. I mean, I think if they're done well, they end up being very fruit forward. However, I'm not going to say it's a defect, but one of the sort of side effects of anaerobics is that it tastes like cinnamon. And so you get a very specific cinnamon note depending on the level of fermentation and depending on how well it's been done. And it can be overwhelming. And there's a moment, where everybody was doing some sort of anaerobic fermentation. Yeah. It was just like, throw it in a plastic bag.
See what happens.
Yep. And
stuff
I was
to it.
Pulling overwhelming amount of cinnamon out of almost everything that I tasted. This was probably 18 months ago, where I just felt like every sample that we got that was anaerobic just tasted like cinnamon to me. So I think, like everything, coffee just has a evolution, and processes have an evolution. And in 2010, when we started, naturally processed coffees were very rare. Central American coffees, you would almost never find a natural.
No.
You wouldn't be buying a naturally processed.
I feel like Ethiopia and Costa Rica were probably the only two, 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, in Costa Rica, specifically Las Lajas, because of the landslide that forced them into learning about naturals and processing their coffee naturally in 2008.
And they are, I feel like, just really the trailblazers of honeys.
Yeah. Well, and we've spent so much time with their honey processed coffees, and especially the black honey. So I think one of the things I want to talk about when we're talking about cupping, tasting, sensory, flavor, is that people are approaching a bag of coffee, right? And they're looking at the tasting notes, or they might be on our website reading the tasting notes and thinking, like,
it's just a joke. We just want you to go home and really stump yourself.
Exactly. It's like, are these people taking themselves way too seriously or what? And yes, I mean, let's be honest. We take ourselves way too seriously.
Well, I mean, depending on the notes, you could be like, they didn't take themselves seriously enough that day.
That's a good point. I mean, bubblegum, Starburst, we do occasionally on a super fruity natural processed coffee that has like a co-ferment or something. We're pulling like candy flavors out of it and trying to be really specific with it. Like, well, is it a yellow Starburst?
Yeah.
Or is it a green?
Tony is very good at 90s cereals and candies.
Sense that he ate a lot of sugar as a child. Yeah. I feel the same way. Like he can nail the candy notes.
They're like, oh, Fruity Pebbles. Will be like, it's Fruit Loops. It's Fruit Loops. And I'm like, oh, okay. But I mean, if it's there, it's there. We're not making stuff up just for the sake of having something fun and different on our bag. But it still has to be relevant so that everyone knows what that is. Like oatmeal raisin cookie. Everyone knows oatmeal raisin cookie or what that could taste like. But you wouldn't want to put like my grandma's oatmeal raisin cookie, iced oatmeal raisin cookie, because then no one's tasted that before. So we do try and keep our notes to the point where someone can try it and taste it and be like, oh yeah, I'm smelling cinnamon. It's got kind of like a creamy, milky mouthfeel. There's some sort of like oat wheat something in the finish, but it's also buttery. So we're putting together that cookie.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's something that a customer can understand.
Yes.
And they can correspond that to something that they've tasted in their lives, which I think is really critical to the way that I view it, which is I sort of end up being dad in the cuppings a lot of times, not on purpose, but where we're going to approach it completely as a blank slate. Everybody who cups the coffee should come to it with a sort of purity of mind to say this could taste like anything, right? And so we'll get notes that sometimes are not necessarily very appetizing because that's okay. People are pulling. One of the most important things that I have experienced and thought of, I sort of think about is the need to actually say it out loud or write it down when you're cupping it. When you taste the coffee, if you don't correspond that to an actual phrase or word that you own, then you lose it. And
it can happen so fast too, and
so
leave
quickly.
so quickly.
And one of the greatest things about it is actually how many times I've proven myself wrong or been proven wrong by saying something out loud and then immediately knowing that I'm wrong when I say it. And that
yeah, I've been there too, though.
Humility and the ability to be flexible, and you walk up to something and you taste it and you say, mango. And then as soon as you say it, you're like, no, that is not mango. That is peach. That is papaya. But saying it out loud or writing it down in your notes allows your brain to actually it triggers a corresponding reflexive taste reaction, I think, that basically, your senses are saying to your brain like, yep, or nope. Whereas if you're just tasting it and you're just like, yes, it tastes like things. It tastes like many ambiguous things that are swirling around in my brain right now. You can't ever get to it. And so I think feeling like this is a safe space is so important. Like, you can come in here into this lab and we're tasting coffee. You say whatever you want to say. It's so important that you do that. Then it's also important that you recognize when you make mistakes, you recognize that you're wrong, you recognize how other people are better at it than you are and that you can learn from them.
Some people are so good at it too, like this being so specific. Like, someone had said, I don't know, maybe it's still on the board, a recent coffee was a wet patio with a lit cigarette.
I want to clarify.
The rain is coming in or something like that. It was
wet patio ashtray, I think was the note.
Wet patio ashtray.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify that was not our coffee. That was coffee that somebody had sent us to sample.
Yeah, it could have been a sample.
That was not a coffee that we sell.
If you're looking forward to that note,
you're not going to get it. I'm sorry. But wet patio ashtray was accurate.
It was. So, and then we did a coffee. I'm going to try this right now because it may have been this one. I can't remember. But it was corn. And everyone was like, it's corn. But it was like, it's sweet corn. It's cream corn. Or that's what it was. But not everyone finds creamed corn
to be super palatable or to be something that they were searching for in their coffee, right?
Or like, you can't romanticize the creamed corn.
Exactly.
Like, it's
even though you can imagine the taste, and it is actually delicious. Maybe people don't like the texture and a bad association with it. But I mean, everybody loves like corn on the cob on the grill with butter and salt. That is a very long tasting note. Yeah. That's a very long thing to put on a coffee bag. I was like, this is the point where we struggle and where I end up sort of coming in and in a cupping, and we'll get a list of notes and we'll have to chop them down into being something that really corresponds to
haiku.
Yeah, some sort of flavor haiku. That's a good analogy. That also corresponds to flavors that people are familiar with. But we can push them a little bit. Not everybody has guava every single day, but guava is a very specific.
Or dragon fruit, but you can go get a dragon fruit. And that's why I'm saying, like, the best way to develop your palate is go out and get it and taste it. And if you get a bag of Red Rooster coffee or any coffee and the tasting notes are saying dragon fruit, guava, honeydew melon, and you're like,
it's a crazy coffee.
Yeah. Go get it and taste the coffee with those fruits there and like break apart the flavor wheel.
But that also gives the customer the opportunity to know what they're getting into. It's like if your flavor palate, if your general like coffee palate and what you want out of a coffee doesn't involve raspberries and doesn't involve dragon fruit, then that's okay. Yeah. There are coffees that offer dark chocolate, and we might be more specific in our notes, and we might say that it's like single origin, African chocolate. Yeah. Which is going to be a little bit fruity, but still have that chocolate backbone. There might be things that have hazelnut. Nutella is a great kind of flavor call where you can have chocolate.
I think that's in the Worka. I think that's a note for the
chocolate
Worka.
And hazelnuts together, but extremely sweet at the same time.
And that's what's so fun about doing group cuppings too, is someone can say, yeah, it's chocolatey, but it's also like nutty, and I'm thinking hazelnut, and then someone's going to say it's Nutella. That's what Nutella is. And that's going to be a note that most people, even like universally, are going to know what Nutella is.
Yeah.
So that's a good one.
So when you were working with the sensory protocol, when you were doing that training, like how did that open up your knowledge? Like what did that deliver for you?
Much. I was really lucky because during the pandemic, I'd always wanted to go to a sensory summit, which is at UC Davis in California, but they didn't have it. They were offering it online at like a huge discount. So I was able to go to Sensory Summit, but
they shipped you.
Do it right here. They shipped me a giant box filled with tons of samples, tons of little vessels, cups, spoons, different exercises where I got to, I really, really feel like I developed my palate in that week. One of my favorite exercises, and I bring this up to new students or anyone getting training done. I like to talk about this with baristas and cafe managers too. So one of the exercises was we had our headphones and we were told to brew a coffee from a sample packet. There's nothing on it. We just were supposed to brew it. And then they had like this MP3 file of music, and you push play and you drink the coffee and you take notes while you're listening to classical music. And I was like, oh, well, that was nice. That was lovely. Thank you. And then they said, okay, now take, another sample, brew it. And they changed the music to like heavy metal. And you take notes with that coffee, listening to heavy metal. Take the next sample packet, listen to jazz, take notes. And then by the end of it, they're like, okay, let's look at your notes. They're wildly different. And then they tell you it's the exact same coffee. And that ambiance and what you're experiencing externally from the actual experience of drinking the coffee can manipulate flavor.
And did you have any idea that it was the same coffee while you were doing it?
No, I just was like, this is sample 1, sample 2, sample 3. And they're just doing a nice thing for us here where we get to like have this. I thought it was more so going to be about like how the music escalated finding the notes or something, like heavy metal, like doing it fast and it's like, kind of aggressive.
Yeah.
And like the jazz made me feel a little more creative. I was being a little more creative in my notes.
Nice.
So
salted green mango.
Yeah, exactly. But I love bringing that up to especially cafe managers, because I'm like, you are setting up this space for customers to come in, down to the music that you play, the vessel you serve it in, because vessels have a huge role in how you're experiencing flavor and aromatics as well, down to color and the shape that they're in.
Which is why we cup in white bowls, try and have as little
influence as
possible. Yeah.
That was an amazing course that I got to take. I'm really glad I had the opportunity to do it. I was bummed that I didn't get to go, but I felt like they did a great job being able to have it online. There was a lot of amazing teachers, a lot of folks from the World Coffee Research, scientists that were there doing lectures. I learned a lot. It was really amazing. But
do you think that the sensory protocols or sensory lexicon has changed since then, or since you've been in the business?
Yeah, it's changed. I mean, really, we only had the flavor wheel. The flavor wheel, I think, was invented in 95. Don't quote me on that. I think it's like mid-90s.
Yeah.
And then we didn't have the sensory lexicon, I feel like, until, don't quote me on this either, but like 2015, 2016. I think it was pretty basic at that time. I wasn't familiar with it yet. I wasn't familiar with it until 2020. But it was pretty basic notes at that point. So like citrus. What are citrus? Okay, orange, grapefruit, things like that. But now they're a lot more specific. So like lychee is in there, and notes that might have citrus, but also like sparkling grapefruit juice, or something like that. So they're a little bit more
they get specific.
Evolved. Yeah. And you can order what's called like these flavor active packets to really taste what different acids might taste like. Because like I could sit here and tell you citric acid is what's in grapefruit, and you'll be like, but what does citric acid taste like?
Yeah.
And you can order these packets off of the Lexicon website, and they'll send it to you, and it's like a packet, and you put it in water, and you'll taste the citric acid.
Yeah. The idea that the flavors that we're calling like raspberry, grapefruit, could actually be broken down into their own tasting notes. It's almost too much to absorb.
It is. And I just say take it a little bit at a time. Like if you're someone that's new to the industry, or you're just a culinary person, you love food and you love drinks and you love brewing at home, you can just, if you start breaking things apart and using the tools that the WCR or SCA has provided, then your palate's going to develop, and you're going to be able to taste so many more like nuanced flavors. I think one of the greatest gifts on earth is the ability to taste and enjoy food and drinks. And if you're just eating mindlessly, there's no real joy from that. So like brewing coffee or making something to eat and adding certain flavors in it, even like if you're cooking and you're like, just for fun, I'm going to throw this in because I don't know what it's going to do, that's going to develop your palate, and it might open up the door to something.
We live in such a rural, small town where our options for the kind of fruit that we can buy in the grocery store, the kind of restaurants that we go to, just what we're exposed to here is limiting. And I mean, obviously we love it here. It's an amazing place to live, but I always feel like we have to work a little bit harder to make sure that we're tasting new flavors. Anytime I go to a metropolitan area, I want to eat at the craziest restaurant I can find.
You're fun to travel with because of that. Yeah, you're like, I found this Ethiopian restaurant. I found this restaurant.
Well, and then you're tasting things and spice combinations that
Yes.
you're just not normally exposed to, and you bring that back to the cupping table.
Yes.
Bring that back to what we do, and bring that back to more accurate tasting notes on the bag, and therefore actually serving our customers better.
There's no like nice way to really say it either. If someone says, I'm just not tasting what's on the bag or the website, and it's like, try harder.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
But what are you tasting? I think that's a fair question.
Are you enjoying the experience? Because that's the first part of it.
Well, speaking of, like, do you think that there are tasting notes or flavors that people have a lot of trouble with, like that is, are more difficult for the sort of general palate?
Well, there's the obvious one where, like, if you aren't familiar with specialty coffee and you're used to drinking commercial grade coffee, I won't say any names, but like if you're used to that, that's what coffee tastes like to you, and that's what's good.
Yeah. And in many cases, what you're tasting is not only like a low-grade quality coffee, but you're also tasting the age of the coffee.
The staleness.
Yeah.
They're usually going to taste very rubbery and Band-Aid-like to me.
That's rancid oils.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if that's all
because coffee's full of oils and that are developed in the roasting process, which are really fats, lipids. And just like unsalted butter on your countertop, lipids can go rancid.
Mm-hmm.
And
yum.
And so if they sit on the shelf in a can, ground,
exposed to light,
for 9 months or however much time, or just sit in a warehouse for that amount of time, they are going to go rancid. And so that, like, you can't escape that coffee is bitter. Coffee is bitter. It's part of the profile.
Mm-hmm.
It's balanced.
Caffeine is bitter.
Caffeine is bitter. It's the same principle behind beer in a certain way. It's like beer has a bitterness to it because alcohol has a bitterness to it. But you balance it with other complexities, and with coffee, it's balanced by sweetness and acidity and a texture that makes it pleasant. But that bitterness that people associate, I always think it's so interesting that, like, I've heard so many comments throughout my career and just little side comments about like real coffee, or like sort of like a machismo around coffee, like it gets
100% real coffee.
Yeah, it's like, I want it strong coffee, real coffee, man's coffee, whatever.
You want it.
Yeah, exactly.
Cowboy coffee.
That is basically just saying, I love subjecting myself to something terrible to prove that I am tough.
Sure.
It's like, I just like holding my hand in this fire.
Not
because
me.
it shows that I am strong. When the fact of the matter is that there's so much potential for actually enjoying the experience, not just having it be a caffeine delivery device. And
what's that mindlessness again? Like, you can enjoy a really good specialty grade cup of coffee, and maybe you can't pinpoint the notes that you're reading on our website, but it will be different. But to answer your initial question, like, I just feel like if that's all you know and that's what you're used to, if you drink this coffee, you might go, what is this?
Yeah.
Why doesn't it taste burnt and rubbery and like tape?
Well, no, and those are sort of the forward, and soy sauce. Let's not forget soy sauce. Those are sort of the forward notes of let's say the commercial grade coffee. But even if you get into the sort of squishy middle of, like, we're almost a specialty, we're considered, the general public considers this specialty. That's going to be heavily dependent on the roast and roast profile, and that we're talking mainly, when we talk about what the flavor of that coffee is. We're talking mainly about how much roast we taste. Do we taste a lot of roast, or do we taste a less amount of a lot of roast?
Yeah, and more acidity.
And that is a step in the right direction, because that coffee tends to be fresher in general. The sort of like commercial grade, famous companies that are commercial grade specialty coffee that roast millions and millions of pounds of coffee a year. They tend to be predominantly heavily roasted, darkly roasted. They do have more body. They do have a little bit more sweetness, maybe a little bit of acidity if you can get through that initial roastiness. But
I don't want that though.
Yeah.
And I also just think like the younger generation, finding your independent specialty coffee shop is like
it should be a rite of passage.
Yeah.
It should be what you search for. That should be one of the things that you want to do when you leave your parents' house, is that you found your coffee shop.
Yeah.
And you're supporting some small business person who has a passion for coffee, because they're not making money. They're doing that because they love it. And it should be your mission to go and help them and support them.
I also think they like the younger generation too is also going, I know where coffee comes from.
Yeah.
Like I did not know that growing up.
No, definitely not.
And so
coffee came from a can. Actually, my dad drank the like foil vacuum pack thing, and it was always like a big deal. He would be like, listen, and open it up and it'd go psh, when he,
Yeah. But I think we've been here for several years now, but like independent cafes and roasteries that are showing off a farmer's art, and how it can taste so good depending on its origin and roast profile, other than just being a drug that is getting them to class or anybody. But I do feel like the younger generation has figured it out and has been like, oh, independent coffee shops are cool, and we're supporting farmers in different countries, and this is my coffee shop and this is my barista, and my barista knows exactly how to make my drink.
I learned that I like coffee from Colombia, or I learned that I like coffee from Ethiopia.
Yeah, and most people think Colombia is a roast.
Yeah, maybe not most, but many.
Maybe not anymore either.
Yeah.
There was a time.
Yeah, there was a time.
10 years ago.
I should clarify two things. One is that my father now has his own home espresso machine and is obsessed with it. And he has all of his gear. He has his leveler. He has his he has his stir. He has the dispersion screens. He's got it all. And he makes me a cup of coffee every time I go over there and talks to me about everything that he's tasting.
That's really sweet. My dad's the same way, but he will still drink.
He'll drink anything.
He'll drink anything. But if he knows I'm coming over, especially if Rose and I are coming over on the same morning, he'll make
a real pot of coffee.
A real pot of coffee.
The other thing is that I want to admit to you and everyone that no, I'm just like dark roasted coffee with cream and sugar
is good. It's delicious.
It's dessert. Yeah. It's not what I consider coffee.
Yeah.
But it is delicious.
Well,
and so I know why people drink that.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of, there are all kinds of analogies, but I think just sort of breaking down flavor into individual complex components is a joy.
Mm-hmm.
And that when you get older and you start taking the Coke out of your whiskey and you start tasting, Scotch and bourbon and Irish whiskey or what have you individually. I've talked a lot about alcohol. I don't really drink that much, but I do think that it is
it's a good, I think it's, people can understand that.
It's a good analogy, but there's other things like that where breaking down a component into a more specific sort of place, and it's about the craftsmanship, right? The reason that I might enjoy a certain scotch over another is because the people who have crafted it have done it specifically to taste more peaty, to taste more smoky, or to taste sweeter and smoother. And there's a purpose behind that.
Yeah.
And I enjoy learning about that. And I think that if you feel that way about anything that you're interested in, about sort of like peeling back the top layer to really see what's inside of it, then coffee has so many layers. Coffee is so deep that if you pull back that first layer and taste, your first washed Ethiopian black, and you pull one tasting note out of it, like you've just opened up a door.
I can't remember where I heard this. It could have even been you years and years ago.
Lies, I'm sure.
It was something about how wine has like 20 different notes or flavor notes in it that you could pull out, and coffee has over 400 plus.
Yeah, I don't think those numbers are exactly right, but it's but the truth
Something like that.
Yeah, but coffee has more potential flavor combinations than wine does, and I think it was almost like 800 potential flavor combinations with coffee, and I think wine is in the hundreds.
Okay.
As well, but people approach wine and have accepted wine over many years as having complexity and having nuances and having specific flavor notes. And
people are doing that with coffee.
And that's part of our mission here. Like that's why a company like Red Rooster exists in many ways, is to introduce and educate consumers to that possibility. So I'll go back to my original question, which was, what are the flavor notes that even like, or particular flavor nuances that even experienced cuppers might have difficulty with? And I'll say, that herbaceous qualities.
Yeah.
Is something that I have been concentrating on recently and trying to, refine a little bit. Thinking about there's a sort of green tasting quality to a lot of coffees, especially when we're getting them early, super fresh, and we've roasted them light for sampling. And some of that's often gonna develop out with roast or with a little bit of age after the roast. But there's these sort of like qualities that are spicy, super aromatic, taste like something that you would say is green, like cedar.
Or even just like
or
garden
rosemary,
herbs. Yeah.
The sage, even trying for me to taste the difference even in my own cooking,
and not
between
to be confused with like baking spices, which is
another like complicated.
I think that one's tough too.
Because why do you think?
Well, I think it was I read I think it was in the lexicon. Fennel.
Yeah, fennel.
Can taste like clove,
yeah.
Right? Well, they described it as clove, but I also like clove can also be good.
I pulled the clove tasting note out of the Costa Rica black honey just last week.
Yeah, and that's good.
Yeah.
But I think that is the hardest part there, is like what's a defect and not good versus what is good. Like obviously you can say this doesn't taste good and this does taste good, but there are certain parts when you're tasting something where it's hard to differentiate, or like what is this and which direction am I?
Well, and baking spices tend to be used all together. Like people might taste cinnamon. That's a like really obvious one, right? But I mean, a lot of times you put cinnamon and nutmeg and clove and whatever else.
Allspice or baking spices, yeah.
All together, and that is baking spices.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we approach it and say, oh, it tastes like baking spices. But trying to break that down a little bit further.
Brown spice.
Yeah.
But
it's extremely difficult.
Break it down even more.
And but that's a very appealing style of tasting note too. I mean, there are medium plus roasted coffees that are really sweet, not so acidic, maybe a little bit chocolatey, nutty, that can have a lot of baking spice in it. And trying to refine those down into like, what are we really talking about, instead of just saying baking spices.
It's good to have them handy.
Yeah.
And smell them.
And smelling them.
Another one is just like nuts. Like that's really common in coffee flavor notes, but that can also be a defect, like something that's peanutty or husky.
Mm-hmm.
Could be like,
yeah, I taste you get a lot of peanut skin in coffee that is maybe not processed, not dried as well as you would like it to be dried in the processing.
Yeah. So I think to answer your question on like the further end of that spectrum, like it can get really challenging trying to differentiate between like, that's a defect. No, it's just nutty. It's like, well, that's a defect, at least for us in the industry. But if you're someone at home, it could just be chocolate. You'd be like, what chocolate is this? There's so many different kinds of chocolate, like semi-sweet, dark, Baker's, cocoa powder. And then there's like plays off of chocolate, like fudge or brownie or anything like that. And well, what is it? What are you experiencing? And that alone could be challenging for someone.
Well, do you have like a piece of advice for somebody?
Go on a picnic.
Go on a picnic. You already said, yeah. So that's just, your approach.
Yeah,
huh?
I just think try new foods. Try, experiment with different foods. Pair foods with different drinks. Make your own like sodas with different juices. Juice your own fruits. I mean, it takes more time, but I feel like everything's artificial now, which is a whole other part of flavor, especially in the lexicon. Like everyone thinks they know what banana tastes like, but universally people think like banana candy, like banana runts or something like that, like candy, artificial banana. So I just think you just have to keep tasting, and you just have to keep tasting coffee. Like our baristas in the cafe, they drink their shot of espresso every morning, and they do it together, and they talk to one another about like what they're experiencing, what they're tasting. I like to think they get out the flavor wheel and like really get into it, but they at least are like pulling their shot.
It is 6:30 in the morning. I mean,
talking about it with each other, but that's the best way to do it. I mean, my husband and I like to drink coffee together Sunday morning, and it's fun asking him what he's getting out of it, because I'm like, that is incorrect. Or yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's great job. And it's just make it fun.
Yeah.
That's the best advice. Like I can't tell someone how to like, or I can't make your palate be developed. I can't do it.
Well, I always feel like it's a sort of balance between trusting yourself and humility, and don't settle.
And there are going to be times where you're like, yeah, I'm getting that, and it's wrong. And I do think we're in a good place now as a team where like if someone says something, like if you're like it's mango, and someone might say I'm getting more peach, but 10 years ago everyone would be like, Haden said mango, so it's mango.
Yeah, I'm glad to be wrong.
Like, I don't feel good about that.
I was like, I shouldn't talk anymore.
But it's just, it comes with confidence, and that's just from drinking coffee and tasting new foods and drinking different drinks as you go. Like I feel like I can tell the difference between water now, like different waters, like
without a doubt,
bottles and like taps.
Yeah.
And that would be impossible for most people, I feel like. But definitely through mouthfeel and like just
salinity.
Yeah,
pH.
absolutely. And that just comes from, coffee's 99% water. So I have to know about water. I have to know a lot about water and what makes good coffee. So
I think in drinking this coffee, it just reminded me that we get a lot of feedback from first-time coffee drinkers or first-time like Red Rooster or specialty, let's say first-time specialty drinkers who are like, it's not bitter. Well, how do you do that? And it's not a great secret. It's that we buy great coffee from great producers who work really hard, and then we just try and do our best with it. And we're very focused. I think
we also have amazing people who roast the coffee.
We have a strategy. We have roasting strategy and kind of comprehensive work that we've put in over the years to do it. But the point being that coffee does not have to be bitter. That if you are drinking it black and after you swallow it, you don't have to be left with anything but, a gentle reminder of what you just experienced. If you're left with, something bitter, something acrid, a taste that you can't get out of your mouth and you need to have another sip, or you feel like you need to add something to it, let's try a different coffee.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's up our game to something that's more specialty. And I think, I just think that there are people out there who have not had that experience. I want to share that experience with people because it's so eye-opening when you have that first experience where you say to yourself, oh, well, this coffee is sweet, it's acidic, and
it's balanced, it's complex.
And it doesn't leave me feeling with any sort of extra taste in my mouth or lingering aftertaste that's negative, which is, in many ways the first sign of something that could be better. Mm-hmm. From a coffee perspective anyway.
There's nothing wrong with bitterness either though. I feel like...
Yeah, but that rubber hose...
The rubber hose, that's different, but a little bit of bitterness I think is nice.
Yeah, I agree.
And then, I romanticize everything. So I'm like, if you want to give me a diner coffee at 2 a.m. in a diner, I'm probably going to really love it because it's the vibe of what's happening.
There's a place for everything.
There's a place for everything.
But imagine if you got that cup of coffee and you were like, this is actually amazing.
It's actually really good. And there's no one around to talk to about it. Yeah. But it's all about what you like and what you want your experience to be. If you just want to guzzle it down, then that's fine, and that's you do you. But if you want to taste more and experience more and you want, more out of life, just take your time and try something different and take notes and talk to people about it. It's fun. It's fun.
Talk to us. Drop us a line.
Yeah.
Okay, Grace, it's been fun.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it again sometime.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Well, if you like this video, make sure to check out our other videos on the YouTube channel. Hit subscribe if you so desire. And check out future videos because we're going to start talking about roasting. We're going to get deep into green coffee sourcing and all the other factors that go into making amazing specialty coffee here at Red Rooster.